Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 9x90. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is Bartosz Wojszczyk. If you think we look alike, it's because we are both Polish. But I have, unfortunately, my track record is not as cool as his because he has done more than 50 billion in energy infrastructure projects over the course of his career, which is why we brought him on today to answer your biggest questions about energy infrastructure and commercial real estate. Before we dive into the episode, I just want to give a quick thank you to our sponsor for this episode. It is National Energy Holdings. They engineer, procure, construct, own, and operate energy infrastructure for existing and new development real estate projects in the US, although they are considering projects outside of the US at this time as well. They also occasionally offer to do revenue share of 80-20 with specific strategic partners over a term of 25 years. Bartosz, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me over.
So, do you want to just briefly walk us through a little bit of your career? How did you get started in energy infrastructure?
Well, my background, started as an electrician, $3.50 an hour. That was my career. Then decided to go into engineering school, actually finished my degrees in Poland. My wife was from the States. We moved to the States. And my first job was for Puget Sound Energy, which is utility up north, Seattle, outside of Seattle, where I was first as an engineer, then I was engineering manager, and then I was responsible for a $100 million EPC outsource contract from PSC to Petelco. And Petelco is part of the largest EPC company in this country. So that's kind of how I started with the energy infrastructure, and after that the life was blessed, wild ride. I worked for GE, where I ran smart grid infrastructure business from 0 to 2.5 billion. Accenture smart grid business. Then I had the privilege to work for one of the richest Filipino, Panilina, who owns utility in Southeast Asia, when I was responsible for $1 billion investment. Came back, opened my small investment fund, where we're actually probably one of the first companies that invested in hydrogen technology, into electric vehicle technology, into a couple other very disruptive technologies, long before people knew how to pronounce hydrogen or electric transportation.
Yeah.
We have quickly discovered actually that money was not an issue, and a lot of our investors had a problem with operation, scaling technology infrastructure businesses. So for the last 10 years, me and a couple partners, we've been in operating technology infrastructure, energy businesses, taking from early growth past billion scale. So through and through, infrastructure from generation assets all the way down to commercial retail, hotels, what I call commercial industrial type customers, and along the way also a lot of distributed energy assets, renewables, energy storage, etc. So I love what I do. Life's been good and enjoying the ride.
And you're very good at it. Oh my goodness. So from cost center to revenue line, underwriting on-site energy into net operating income, could you just walk us through that?
Yes. So first of all, historically, we have to understand that most of the companies never historically look as the energy infrastructure as a profit center. It was always considered a cost center. It has to, either as an electric utility bill or, peak rates, for electricity or infrastructure you put. And in the last, I would say 5+ years, and that started actually by introducing energy storage and electric vehicle charging station, companies start looking how to move this whole amenity of distributed asset that is being added to commercial, industrial, hotels, even data centers or malls, and how to move it into profit center opportunity where you can make money on it, either as a revenue, or element of efficiency, or element of reducing your cost of operating your real estate, which means improving your net operating income at the end of the day. So I would tell you that generally in that conversation, technology is not a problem because there is a whole slew of technologies available on the market today that you can deploy to improve on your profitability or improving your net operating income. What is very critical is to actually how you design the financial pro forma to enable that element. So for example, when we worked with MGM or Marriott family on the hotels, and they were saying, you know what, Bartosz, we want to go across the portfolio of our hotels, or we want to deploy it across, we work with JLL, who's, has multifamily, and they want to do charging station. They would love to do some, offset against the cost of electricity because we have to pay for peak demand charges, based on our geographical location. So we were starting first of all saying, okay, give me your customer profile. Who actually lives in the apartment? Who actually comes to your hotel? What is the pricing sensitivity for the, cost of the room, or someone is willing to pay for that extra amenity? Someone, would love to, for example, have that parking spot reserved with the charging station available, next to the door.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, when we work with Marriott family and JLL, we have Charlotte here. They said, we have a big stadium next door. So if we know that over the weekend, if the hotel, has a low occupancy rate, or, many people who live in the multifamily, they go for a weekend, how about we rent the space and amenity to people who come to the event so they can park and pay money. So we got very creative around designing a customer behavior, putting this into financial model, and then simply trying to decide it's either a premium amenity or it's a revenue share model, because when you deploy charging station, or like you mentioned, our sponsor, they do EPC work. When they deploy energy storage, or they deploy, I'm assuming they also do distributed energy resources of some sort, solar, etc. So then you have partners like that who can work with the real estate developers or hotel organizations, saying, what, for a specific period of time, we are going to attract an outside, customers who use the space, use a parking spot, use electricity of some sorts, and we can develop a revenue sharing model. And trust me, the revenue sharing model between the energy entities and real estate entities, it seems intuitive when you deploy the assets, but historically those two worlds exist in the very separate cost bucket centers and didn't know how to collaborate. So by bringing two very critical stakeholders to the conversation, real estate, you have a space, plus energy guys like our sponsor who, are experts in deploying, designing, managing infrastructure to really enable that, what I call a profit as a center opportunities, is very critical. So my experience doing this all over the world, again, working with the large institutions, it's very much user customer experience. What do you want to model? How do you want to monetize? And then properly design the financial pro forma that doesn't look as the energy asset as a cost center, but truly monetization strategy, additional revenue generation. And then, the profit sharing, cost sharing, 80-20, 50-60, whatever that is, that's up to stakeholders when they come together.
I think, I don't know who you follow on Instagram, but I follow a lot of private equity and real estate. And someone posted this summer that BlackRock is getting into the energy infrastructure.
Yep.
And as soon as that post came out, I was like, every single real estate titan is now going to start looking at adding energy infrastructure. And that's one of the reasons I was like, oh, I better move quick on this news. So
well, I will tell you, it's not only that they're getting into energy infrastructure, because many people are pushed into conversation of energy infrastructure because it's a bottleneck driven by data center conversation. But some people who are slightly smarter in this cohort of people, they say, well, you know what? Step back. Yes, it is a bottleneck, but if I properly invest and monetize, that could become a profitability P&L for me, extra money, revenue generation. So forget right now about the infrastructure. I will tell you, when I was in the charging station business and we were deploying charging station, we were the first company actually looking at the charging station as a profit center. MGM, Marriott, JLL, and others. And I will tell you that we were surprised how MGM, for example, and JLL were looking at buying technology, energy technology companies for their own consumption as a profit center, because they knew that they will have to deploy it in the volume, specific technology into their portfolio to even create diversification. It was a branding strategy. Hey, I have 12 charging stations, or I have, I have a solar on the roof, or I have an energy storage in the basement. So, instead of you paying peak demand charges to the utilities, we will become almost like a mini utility for you within the footprint of my real estate. And at specific prices points from utility, I'll give you discount, or I'll give you lower prices. So it became outside of the box thinking, flipping a bottleneck conversation into truly a profit element. But again, you have to find the right partner for that, because it's not just, like I tell people, you can go and put the roof, your solar on the roof in your house. But again, at the end of the day, you're not fully monetizing on the opportunity of that solar if it's purely an asset on your roof. So if you have EPC companies that really know how to think outside of the box, how to not to just come and charge you CAPEX, but put some form of financing, OPEX model, like revenue sharing model is a great example here. That's the partnership you need to really look for in this new dimension of energy infrastructure play.
Yeah, this summer I did a 2-week road trip with the children.
Yep.
Up and down from Miami to New York, and then we did 95 north, and then 75 and through like these other cities, like one highway over, going back south. And it was really interesting to see all of the options and the cities that have a lack of options for the EV chargers.
Yep.
There was one spot in Virginia where it was like this tiny gas station that had a pizza shop and a Dunkin' Donuts, and I couldn't understand why it had like thousands of 5-star reviews. We pulled up and they had 40 chargers, 40 Tesla chargers for one tiny pizza shop on the side of the highway. And I was like, that's brilliant right there. Like, that is money.
I'll tell you, right, I have a hybrid for full transparency.
Yeah.
So I pay attention more to the charging stations. And as someone who comes from the charging station space where we were deploying, where pretty much everyone was pronouncing doom and gloom because we'll be deploying charging station, electric grid will collapse, we don't have enough infrastructure build up.
Yeah.
And I tell people, we will never be in the adoption scale like Scandinavian countries, where basically their adoption rate is in the high 80s%. This country will always have a hybrid of conventional, combustion engine and some form of a hybrid and electric. But I will tell you, when I got my hybrid last year, and I pay attention more driving around, pretty much I can go anywhere right now in my leisure and comfort and flexibility, and I will always find a working charging station.
Yeah. More
importantly, the dilemma and the anxiety that people had saying there will never be enough charging stations, we always have to wait for that spot, for that parking. I will tell you, I never have to wait. It's there. It's there. It's available.
I have a story about that.
Yeah. And the best part is, even, right now, Walmart, Walmart had 2 years ago a huge tender because under their own umbrella, they are deploying pretty much level 3 charging station across every single Walmart location. They right now, I'm not kidding you, put 25 charging stations level 3, which is, the fast charging in the parking. It's crazy. It's just now it becomes almost like a commodity, and no one really thinks about this. It's almost there. It's accessible. So my point is, listen, industry always goes through those kind of, hey, it's a gloom and doom. We're going to collapse because there's something new happening. But over time, market and industry and technology and partners rebalance itself, and things become a commodity. It's just a matter how you really make your money. So you don't. Yeah, there's an investment necessary, but how do you monetize on that over time? So
I think though the doom and gloom has to precede the innovation.
Yes.
Like, in March, I was speaking on stage in London at and I had just joined the board of an international energy company and an international data center company.
Yep.
And they asked me when I got on stage, because I'm 5th generation real estate, and we're always speaking about how you want to build a city with the tenants in mind, and you want to build a building with the tenants in mind, and you're supposed to be taking care of the people inside the castle gates. And they were like, how are you taking care of the local populations when data centers are sucking up all the energy and water? And I was like, that's a great question. Let me go get you the answer. So,
well, this is interesting. Yeah, Adi, this is actually extremely interesting topic, because this is what I've been in energy for 30 years, both utility as well as off-taker.
Yeah.
And let me put it like that. Energy demand is always in demand. Utilities always follow, they never lead, but follow the trend of progress. So the demand is always what I call in demand, which means I remember, listen, when I worked for Puget Sound Energy, or even, work for the utilities in Asia or Europe, we always struggled to keep up with interconnectivity of large load. That's a consistent problem, that you always have to build up capacity. You always have to figure out the rate structure. You always will have an element of the peak demand charges, of time of use. Okay, that's element. Now, what I tell people, that the difference between what's been happening in that space for the last 10, 15, 20 years is that technology progressed so much today in the overall energy landscape, that today, when I have the big demand like data centers, which talking gigawatt size, which for some people it's a mind blowing. For me, it's like, I dealt with the gigawatt sizes for the last 30 years, because I tell people what people don't understand. Whatever you build and consume, you have to generate. There always have to be balance. There always have to be a zero sum between supply and demand, regardless what you connect and what you build. So people who operate in the scale of gigawatt, they understand the problem statement. So I tell people the difference today is that I can actually develop 100% utility independent, behind the meter energy infrastructure without necessity for utility, because technology, interconnectivity, software that controls and balances and manages everything evolved so much that, to a degree, utility is unnecessary for me to build something bigger behind the meter, and even provide necessary reliability and operational controllability to make sure this is deliver on the 3, 5, 9s, whatever data center require these days.
Yeah.
So flexibility today is much greater in that area than what it used to be in the last decade plus.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
So that's why in the context of real estate, if you build in the city center, it's easy. There's enough capacity. If you build if you build commercial and industrial outside of the city, you will always deal with capacity constraint, regardless if you have a data center associated close by or not. But today, what is very important, in the real estate, I can put the solar roof. Many places I can deploy the geothermal heat pump. In many places I can put the flexible solar, on the awnings or windows. I can today put very inexpensive energy storage. I can integrate everything within the footprint. Now I need to marry this with monetization strategy, the revenue sharing element, business model, financial benefit. And I don't even have at that point worry, how am I connected to utility? Now utility becomes my backup, which is the whole idea, turn around. Instead of utility become my primary and I have to have a backup generator, diesel backup generator. Now I flip the whole idea of business model on the energy side.
That's what I was thinking of doing with the energy component. When so after that speaking engagement in March, you followed my career more intimately than others, because you came onto the board of Origin, and then you're now here after I've done all those crazy negotiations with like 15 different energy companies to figure out which one could add energy infrastructure the way that I understand it. But what I was thinking is a very simple model is, if we just took every building across the US that already exists and added these alternative energy assets to it, we would very quickly notice that without creating hundreds of thousands of acres of solar panel fields, we could really quickly address the energy problem just by putting solar panels across every industrial roof, every storage center roof, every retail center, shopping center, if you just put a few battery storage packs in behind the building where the trucks are dropping shipping cargo containers anyways, you put solar panel across the roofs of the US, you'll notice we'll end up in a pretty good spot and not having this energy shortage that we do right now.
Well, three components. Yes, one to what you said, technology that gives me what I call local energy flexibility on the generation side. Second, let's keep in mind the efficiency of everything within the building is always increasing, which means the demand component decreases by simply because we're deploying more efficient appliances, more efficient lighting, more efficient HVAC, stuff like that. Yeah. So actually my demand is now to some point an offset against the efficiency. And the third component, which we did in the charging station component we had the following thesis. We have a building. That building is, let's say, 350 kilowatt or 2 megawatt or 5 megawatt connected capacity with utility. Then we're looking at what technology can we add. First of all, what efficiency can we provide to the building? Second of all, what technology can we add? Because if, for example, we're going to deploy 25 charging stations, each charging station, even if it's not the fast one, let's say the highest level was the 20 kW, we put 10, that's, extra 200 kilowatt. Let's say we put, which means, we need to design potentially building to 1 megawatt capacity. So then the question became, and that was actually conversation why JLL invested in the building management system software, saying, it's not the technology itself. Now I would like to integrate the highest energy consumption element, which is an HVAC or some form of HVAC. The second highest energy component will become quickly number one, which is a charging station. And then how do we integrate this with the building management system that actually, based on the customer behavior who comes to the building and goes and how long it stays, I actually can effectively manage within the footprint of my real estate 100% of my energy demand consumption, not by adding more utility capacity, but providing building management system as a software integrated capability that allows me to deliver the efficiency and the performance I'm expecting. And we discovered that, we were doing this for very large, stadium arenas, where people come for the events, and we knew that they come between, they stay between 4 to 8 hours, depends on the event. Yeah. So we actually were able, without increasing capacity from the utility, design the entire system that while people were staying, we manage HVAC systems with charging stations in the way that they never noticed that their car were not properly charged by the time they left the event, okay? Without adding capacity, okay? Without adding utility capacity. But again, that goes to a simple thing. The same like you have a Nest thermostat when you manage your consumption, and sometimes utility overlay the demand charges or response to curtail the power. The same concept for the buildings. Who comes when? What is my existing capacity? If I add 10 of this equipment and I have this much efficiency, can I effectively deploy building management system on top of it? And by the way, this is autonomous. You don't have to manage. You can preset it and it will balance itself. And without going to utility for more capacity, I pretty much still deliver the same service at much better return of my monetization strategy at some point.
Let's dive deeper into monetization strategies. So I noticed when I was on the road trip with the children that what we started doing is we would look for EV charging stations that were either at tourist destinations, so like a museum of modern science or something, or they were at a strip mall that had multiple restaurants. And what we found is that most of the higher end strip malls where they have the more expensive tenants, like, I'm thinking about this with a real estate mind. And I was like, oh, all the tenants here are the tenants who are paying like 1.5 to 2x rent rate per square foot compared to like the tenants like the Dollar Tree or Five Below for like the low income retail centers. Have you noticed like that when you add the EV charging stations to a retail center, the revenue that's generated in those stores increases, which allows the landlords to increase their rent rate?
So the way we handle this in our financial model depends on the profile of the off-taker of that infrastructure was as follows. And I'll use the example. The reason, and we bid it for that deal, unfortunately, we didn't want it as a charging station company, but the reason we bid it for charging station, for example, with Walmart, and Walmart eventually went big bang on charging station because they discovered that access to charging station, by the way, both for electric car users and non-electric car users, traditional combustion engine, the rate of customer staying longer and buying more of merchandise in the store increased because there was this mindset of accessibility to charging station.
Oh my God.
So what it appeared originally as a cost center for Walmart that they have to invest in it, they discovered that they actually make more money because customers stay longer, they spend more, they pick up more merchandise. So it's not anymore that Walmart in the middle of nowhere, small city that only low-income people go to, but now people spend more, and that even attracts higher income now customers to the Walmart, because now, of course, someone who owns Tesla, it's has a slightly different income profile than sometimes people who live on the suburbs. Okay, so their monetization strategy turned into investment into more merchandise sold. When we worked with, again, a couple buildings, real estate developers downtown Charlotte, and we are next to the big football arena, they discovered that the investment in the charging station, in the parking, was profitable because it's really hard to find a parking spot in Charlotte next to the stadium. So they actually over the weekend advertised saying, we'll give you a parking spot for free. And by the way, that parking spot for free during the weekend comes with the charging station. And of course, we'll charge you rate for that charging. So they were making pure profit over the weekend by lending space to the users of the, people who go to the stadium to observe whatever sport. So again, it requires slightly creativity, Yeah. We worked with Indian tribe. I can't remember. It's Gene Simmons. He owns the casinos on the Indian tribes. I can't remember right now. Rock something. What's the? I can't remember right now the name. It's not a rock. It's a rock. Anyway. So they have a casinos and they have a restaurant. So they said, Bartosz, we would like to put in every single casino and restaurant charging stations. I said, okay, let's do some deal. So they discovered that by adding charging station, they actually increase a food consumption in the restaurant, because someone who came gambling, they said, I'm staying extra an hour because my car is charging. Okay, I rather spend money in casino. What else can I do? Oh, I'll go to the restaurant. Let's get myself more lunch or dinner. So my point is, the cross-beneficial monetization. But again, you need to get very creative. You need to step back and say, okay, what do I do with the charging station? How am I going to make money? What is the creativity model here I'm going to deploy? So honestly, Adi, it requires a very solid operator, EPC company, like the sponsor here, who understands how to deploy and operate the infrastructure, with the real estate partner who understand the profile of who comes to their either hotel or the multifamily or whatever that is. Okay. Another strategy we pursued was as follow. And by the way, you're probably more versed into that because real estate is your primary domain. The same way like you build a multifamily and you require, gas, electric, and telecom connected to the building. Mm-hmm. We work with the authorities, the basically, people who are developing, approving, and cities and appropriate authorities to basically require charging station interconnection as part of the same process. Which means if you're going to build a multifamily, the same way like you need to have gas and water connected, you have to have charging station connected, period. As an enabling element of that approval process, okay?
No way.
So honestly, Ali, you need to get creativity. I tell people creativity is key over here.
Yeah.
The way we work with the distressed asset housing on the military side. So one of the companies I work with was military housing, and in military housing, when soldiers are getting a specific allowance for rent.
Oh yeah, basic housing.
And yet, it's usually lower income type housing. So we actually discovered that if we convert every HVAC to a geothermal HVAC, we created enough savings that now we can subsidize charging station component to that housing. Okay. So, military should have $1 billion contract to convert every single HVAC into geothermal heat pumps.
Oh my God.
So my point is you have to step back and look at, what are the elements that are not conventional NOI type situation.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. I definitely saw the Walmart thing where one of the charging stations we stopped at was next to a Walmart. And we were walking around, and you don't want your children sitting in a car or playing in a parking lot. So obviously you're just going to keep them inside Walmart. And I kept looking at the app to see like, oh, we're only 50% charged. Okay, walk down this aisle. Oh, we're only 70% charged. Okay, walk down that aisle. But it's interesting to hear that, just not just from my experience, that was like, I wonder, there must be a case study out there that this is increasing revenue.
So with Walmart, so again, the dilemma we have, I think we had and we continue to have with industry is the whole mindset of the gas station. When you come to the gas station, in most of the cases, you fuel to the top. Okay, that's a comfort level. The reason Walmart decided to go with the charging station is not only the increased merchandise consumption and purchase and that value, but they knew, because when we're working on the response to their tender, we were provided information about their customer profile. Okay, and average driving distance of Walmart buyer is no more than 24 miles. So they knew that if they deploy a charging station, the only thing they have to worry about is 25 miles, because in North America and many other countries all over the world, usually when someone has an electric vehicle, there is a 99% likelihood they have a level 1 charging station in the garage, which means every time they come back home, they will connect it, which means when you go to Walmart, you do not anticipate full charge. You only anticipate enough charge to be comfortable to drive 25 to 50 miles. The same way like we work with Amazon, because Amazon was switching and still switching to electric cars, and people don't realize that the average route for Amazon at that time was about 150 to 200 miles a day. Okay, now you have to account for the weight of the truck also. Okay, the consumption increases with the weight. So we actually figure out that if we put enough, not even level 3, the super fast charging, but even level 2, the charge, kind of hours plus, we knew that if we put enough midpoints with enough level 2 charging stations that covers up to 250 miles on the full load of the truck, we will be good enough to build the entire electric vehicle infrastructure for Amazon, given, the electric vehicle trucks, they use. So you have to disconnect yourself for a moment. That applies also to real estate. When you are trying to deploy something innovative on the technology infrastructure, you have to disconnect sometimes yourself with the conventional way of thinking about deploying charging, not charging station, infrastructure. In case of charging station, is not a fuel station. You have to think differently about the consumption and customer behavior. In case of solar panel, energy storage, many people think of it as a backup power, hence it becomes extremely expensive and stranded asset cost, rather than stepping back and saying, I have enough roof, I have enough real estate, technology is dropping with the price. What if I flip my model and think that actually I can treat my solar, my fuel cell, my, maybe geothermal heat pump and energy storage as a primary source of energy. If I flip my model, how I think about this, now you have an opportunity to move it into a profit center, 80-20 revenue sharing, stuff like that. Okay, that's where you have to start.
Yeah. You covered this a little bit, but can we go back to it for a second, talking about battery storage? Because I think a lot of people, when they hear energy infrastructure, they think, okay, I'll get solar panels. If I'm in a windy spot, I'll get wind turbines. If I'm in a place where it's something where people are going to be driving around, which is most of the planet, I'll put in some EV charging stations, and then I'm done. But there are these peak demand surges, and there's also times of day where the sun's not out at night or it's not going to be windy. So you need these battery storage. You need battery storage in order to be able to have the energy continuous, like have your energy supply not dropping. And you also have, with the peak demand, you're able to go in there to prevent having to deal with a surge, right?
Excellent point, Adi. So let me kind of step back and make it as simple as possible, the explanation, to make sure people don't get confused. At the end of the day, when you have a building, you always have to have an access to power.
Yeah.
If you don't have a power, you have an outage, your customer experience will suffer, which means power, it's a necessity at 24/7. Now, energy bill on the NOI profit, the pro forma, can be very expensive item or can be very inexpensive item. I will tell you that when we've built energy infrastructure for some places, states, Tennessee, Kentucky, Midwest, stuff like that, energy is dirt cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Dirt cheap, 3, 4, 5 cents kilowatt hour.
Oh my God.
Hence deploying alternative. It is. Okay.
Can we just pause for a second? California is 27 cents per
kilowatt. I know. Because California has taxes upon taxes and a lot of regulation. But in many states, electricity is inexpensive. So actually deploying an alternative technology financially, NOI, does not make sense. I want to make this clear because too many people think that it's a necessity. Now, when you go to Hawaii, when you go to California, when you go to Maine, when you go to New York, when you go to even some places, Florida, where electricity goes beyond, that 10, 15 cents a kilowatt hour, there are more affordable ways to consume to generate or to buy electricity. Yes, you can put the solar on the roof. That can give you lower the cost of energy by whatever you're producing. Great starting point. Now, if you deal with a lot of pool reliability, a lot of outages from utilities, and you always have to have a, diesel generator on the standby, which sometimes diesel generators on the standby are expensive, maintain the fuel, maintain the asset. If you have a situation where you're adding charging station, additional demand without ability for utility to provide you that capability. If you do have moments where you have peak demand charges, time of use rates, where that electricity can be 2, 3, 4 times per rate, even more expensive than your normal rate, then it makes sense to combine local generation, could be solar panel, could be mini wind turbine, could be in some degrees, in some places, hydrogen, some other fuel cell with energy storage, because the combination of two will increase your reliability, reduce your outage time, will become a very affordable alternative to traditional genset and the cost of fuel. Second of all, it will allow you to reduce the peak demand charges because now you're in control where you take the energy from during those utility expensive periods. And third of all, again, there are places, listen, I've been in the hotels, remote cities where middle of the day electricity went off because utility had an outage, and now it's uncomfortable. And by the way, I didn't stay in the same hotel second time, period. Okay. As simple as that. So it helps improve reliability. So again, it's a geographic specific situation, but yes, energy storage in combination with some local generation assets can improve your reliability of supply, which is customer experience, reduce the outage time if you have a situation where you're in some remote places. Third of all, can help you improve on NOI if you have a specific utility rates that are very expensive. And usually what we have discovered, every time you go past that 10 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour as a blended average, which means you have a lower rates, during off-peak hours and higher rates, during on-peak hours, the peak demand charges. That's where that conversation of local asset deployment start making sense.
I could not believe energy is that cheap in Kentucky. I didn't even realize we had energy that cheap in this country. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Listen, I will tell you, I get a lot of people knocking on my door. I live outside of Charlotte, Concord. I live in the neighborhood, everything underground, no utility power system problems. We have no outages even during big storms. I have a lot of people knocking on my door with the solar panel put on the roof. And the reason I'm not making that decision, because my electricity from Duke Energy is inexpensive to what would it cost me to put the solar, even energy storage on my house. Okay.
Yeah.
So listen, everything is very much driven by geographical location and, rates and policies and regulation and who serves you what,
That's true. That is.
I will tell you that even, right now, even this country right now, there's a huge conversation of electricity versus natural gas or gas component, because gas becomes a very inexpensive as an alternative source of energy for many places.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of people who are trying to export our gas to their countries.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
I was on I've been on a few calls over the past couple of weeks where we've had governments, like different countries, that are saying, look, 80% of our fuel was coming from the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Our people are going to not be able to drive to work and the hospital. What can you guys export? And it was like, yeah, I'll ask the oil and gas family offices what they have.
Well, I will tell you, we are, as you know, we're trying to acquire plenty of land where we have a natural gas and a couple other resources that we are developing for behind the meter generation asset.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I will tell you that right now you can put it in natural gas, you can get pretty much for free in Texas. So
you can, and then you export it for $3 to $8 a barrel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although there's a prediction, I've read a couple of reports by some smart analysts from Wall Street that they predict that the era of the cheaper natural gas, $3-4, is going to disappear in the next few years, and will end up as an average $5 to $8, dollars.
That just makes sense. That makes sense, because you have to think about it. You're not just taking fuel out of the ground. You have to pay for the operations. You have to pay for this. Like every gallon of fuel that you're purchasing, you're paying for that business to stay in business, for those employees to go and run those machines, for the accountant who works in the office. You're paying for the salary of the insurance or the attorneys, and you're paying the insurance for the operations. Like, people don't realize how much overhead goes into each gallon of fuel that they purchase.
Well, interestingly, so you're bringing an extremely critical conversation that, we've struggled in the industry, because we always look at energy component. It doesn't matter if it's electricity or natural gas or geothermal or hydrogen or something, as a single asset. One of our strategies, and we believe we can accomplish that, is that when we extract natural gas, we are also sitting on geothermal. We will be extracting from the same well geothermal piece. By the way, as a byproduct, we'll get water and hydrogen, which means now, if I'm extracting multiple resources at a very small incremental cost of additional resource, I'm right now in the situation, we did a full financial pro forma for our Pennsylvania land, where we're buying, we have about 30 years of reserves for natural gas, plus plenty of geothermal capability. We have discovered that if I extract multiple resources on the same profit center, then I can actually go and offer data centers, or we are aiming a lot of national security, reshoring manufacturing, reshoring customers. We can offer them electricity for 2 cents a kilowatt hour, because that cost is already offset by other resources I'm exploring and I'm selling in the market, spot market price value. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So utility, PJM, and others will never be able to compete with me, even when they give me a kick-ass raise. I apologize, my language. I know it's a recording. They will never be able to compete with me on the 2 or 3 cents. The 2 to 3 cents becomes 100% profit for me because the my cost is already embedded in other resources I'm extracting.
We do the same with real estate. There was my godmother is one of the past presidents of Rotary International, like, so the whole world.
Yeah.
And we were speaking with one of the mentors of the founders of Google, Esther Wojcicki.
Yep.
About how we could make it profitable to put hospitals and like proper education, like proper schooling from kindergarten all the way up through nursing school into countries where they don't even have like or regions where they don't even have like running water and education for kindergarten through 5th grade. And one of the things was, what do we put there that makes a lot of money for a corporation so that they're like, oh yeah, I'll give you 10 grand to build the school next to it. Like, oh, but you have to have a trade school there because it's training my employees. We do the same in real estate. We're like, what's going to make the most money? And then everything else is kind of just like pure gravy on the side. Well,
I would tell you, so when I've done a lot of business in developing nations in Asia and Africa, same problem, energy and water. So, you cannot go to developing nations and say, hey, I will develop infrastructure for you, because their disposable income that goes into paying for already utilities is so high that they have no bedroom, and a room to pay them more. So we work with Asia Development Bank on saying, well, first of all, let's rethink how we provide infrastructure. First of all, we will not be developing traditional AC grids. Everything will be DC. Because your fridge, your TV, your computer, everything's a DC appliance. We just put the conversion, DC to AC. So we will work with manufacturers and say, I don't want an AC appliance. I don't want an AC, I can do a DC, fridge, mini fridge. I can do a DC or even gas component. And we discovered that by providing DC microgrids within the community footprint, we have reduced a stranded asset cost between 30 and 45%, which means I just freed up that much cash for let's build a school. Let's build a telemedicine type capability within the village. Let's regionalize, containerize food production. So we create a job for the food production containerized thing. Yeah. So we start freeing the cash simply by looking at how can we rethink the water production. That's why, by the way, we start looking heavily at that, recovering water from the ambient, the air and everything, because if you think, how much water people drink or use for, for washing stuff, you're not talking about how, in our household or in US, we use a lot of gallons. If you look how much water actually developing nation or village or household needs water, it's a gallon, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's so small. So, we look at the, ambient temperature or, the conversion into water, cooling, stuff like that. But we started, we went then to vendors and said, guys, I know you don't love to hear it, but if you want to be in the 25 developing nations, here's a $6 billion from Asia Development Bank for energy infrastructure. Everything that you're going to provide for the household, will be DC. Because now I can have a 12-volt light bulb that is as efficient as the AC. I need wire that is size of this one rather than this one. So the entire infrastructure is downsized by a factor of 10 plus. And yeah, they didn't like it because that required from them creating a new product line that is specific to that environment. But I said, hey guys, you have a choice, okay? So, yeah.
Either you do it or your competitor is going to do it. But whoever does it is going to own 25 nations.
Pretty much. And by the way, it's a captive market. When they get food in, they're in there for a long time. You will not be able to compete and sell the product.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember I've been to 52 countries. A few of them were like emerging nations for like humanitarian aid projects. And because they don't have the speed and the infrastructure that we do in the US, where we're like workaholic machines that are just going from work to sleep, to work to the gym, to work to kids, they spend so much more time in community. So when you put an appliance in one house, everyone in the neighborhood knows the brand of that appliance within like 20 minutes because they're
Yeah.
all just they have so much more time that they spend. It's downtime with community. Yeah, so the marketing economics, behavioral economics in those countries is completely different from what we have in the US, where it's more isolated and you have targeted ads on social media. You just get like a few key influencers in the village and you have the whole village.
Well, the same way, like, many people complain that in many developing countries, there is a lot of theft around water and energy that is being delivered to the household or facility. And we have discovered that instead of deploying very expensive technology to manage that theft and build that theft, let people steal it. And since most of the developing countries is a sachet type society, they buy small portion of something, shampoo, food, just charge them 50 cents a month. Rethink the way you build them instead of investing in a very expensive infrastructure. And honestly, customer satisfaction goes high. Second of all, my debt component reduces because they pay what they can. And C, I didn't have to invest in a very expensive infrastructure, that doesn't increases my collection, right? It just simply tells me, yes, I have a problem with theft. Okay, as simple as that.
Do you want to dive into that deal that we were speaking about in May, or did you already close that raise?
Honestly, I'm still working on the deal that we spoke in May. So listen, we are still going through the couple investors trying to close on the Pennsylvania land where it's a 5,100 acres. We have a lot of mineral and natural resources that we will eventually explore and build into.
And that's
energy.
The land is in which country?
It's here in US. It's Pennsylvania.
And do you have off-takers for the minerals?
We do have a partner that as soon as we close on the land, they will be working with us. They're a Department of War partner. Yeah. And they're interested in the mineral resources for national security. So as soon as we close on the land, we'll get into commercial relationship with them, yes.
That is one of the best off-takers to have because they are never late to pay their bill.
No. I will tell you that, I've done a lot of business with the Department of Defense, Department of War, depends, who sits in the White House and what they call it. But what is very encouraging currently is that Department of War realizes that the commercial component of agility, speed, and readiness is very important to their readiness, national security readiness. So, for example, people don't realize that, when I work with the military housing, where we're providing energy to the military housing, 20,000 beds, 40,000 soldiers or families and across 7 installations. What people don't realize that the Department of War has so much land in their installations that is unused land.
Oh, yeah.
That there right now, you've probably seen the announcements where the Department of War is looking at building mega AI data centers on their land because they want to monetize on that land. What is beautiful about that land is to developers for free. That land is owned by the Department of War. They can give you 50 to 100-year lease contract. By the way, there's plenty of energy available that you can either develop locally or connect with the utilities because utilities are obligated to provide, 599s of energy to military bases of national security importance. So energy generally is not a problem, either by your own development or connectivity. So Department of War is slowly getting into that monetization mindset because yes, people think we need to be military ready, but there's a lot of civilian infrastructure on the military installations, housing, kindergarten, childcare, medical stores that often are underrun and they're in the poor conditions that there's never enough capital available for proper, investment into that. Yeah. So by self-monetizing on that land creates additional revenue stream for Department of War.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's by the way, that's another big opportunity. Right now, I believe, talk about the real estate, commercial, the development. Right now, I believe Air Force privatized their entire hospitality and housing. They awarded that bid, I think, was a couple months ago. So Department of War is going through privatization of their real estate, non-mission critical. No, I'm not talking about the mission critical, war readiness, but commercial real estate, non-critical commercial real estate. They're going through privatization, so that's another huge opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. That'll be a really nice one. I remember a few years ago when I spent a little bit of time in Georgia near Fort Benning. We were looking at all of the multifamilies that were popping up in that area. And what they would do is they would go online to figure out the exact cost of the basic housing allowance for either the enlisted or the officers, and they would start their rent at a specific rate based on who they wanted renting from that building.
Oh, listen, so again, I will not mention the company because I'm not sure if it would be promotion or anti-promotion, but when I was brought up by a company that won housing privatization, it was 1995 or 3, whatever. There was like 6 private housing that won the contracts across the entire army, and you get allowance. Now the problem is that most of the houses used to be and still be very shitty. Apologize my language on the military installations. I would never live in those housing. Okay, the conditions of those houses are really bad. So yes, so they're all real estate developers saying, I have a adjacent land next to the military housing. How much military is paying you that monthly allowance, and I'll give you much better condition, much better, comfort of living for you and your family when you cross that military baseline. Okay.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it's a very good, in some locations, not every base, but in some locations, it's a very good strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's just an clear and easy win. Well, is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience before we wrap up?
No, honestly, what I want to make sure, there is so much noise around data center complexities, impact on infrastructure development, and I always tell people, step back, quiet your soul, don't follow the noise. Simply step back and understand that 90% of what we hear often, it's what I call it by self-proclaiming experts and companies who have never done infrastructure at scale. Find companies and partners like, the company that is sponsoring. Can you remind me the name of that company that is sponsoring this?
National Energy Holdings.
National Energy Holdings. Find partners like that who have done it, who understand the complexity that you don't have to understand, and simply find those partners and work with them, because there are partners out there who live and breathe solving problems like that, and they're really good at it. And what is very important, they understand that in today's world, energy infrastructure is not about the cost center, but profitability. Hence, the revenue component can be designed in the way that you can share it, you can co-benefit out of it. So I tell always people, don't follow the trend and noise. Step back, quiet yourself down, find the right partner, have a proper quiet conversation with them. Yes, clearly articulate the financial benefit, what you're looking for. And I can guarantee you, with partners like that, they will always give you something that is worth considering and working with them with. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Always, Adi, always.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and I will see you all back online. Have a good one. Bye.